High above Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit. Well, actually, we're only on the top of the grandstand. This is the view, though, of the airfield circuit at Silverstone. As we continue with our Super Racing weekend action, let's pick up the FIA GT race. Well, beautiful sunshine at Silverstone as the cars came to the grid for round 4 of the FIA GT Championship. And Jamie Campbell-Walter, the championship leader, coming here to Silverstone, his home circuit, a circuit that he knows well, in which he's raced in almost everything that he has ever sat in. Leading by 1 point from Christophe Bouchou and Jean-Philippe Belloc. And the Labre competition Viper expected again to fare very strongly here. Now, the Labre competition car didn't make the Super Pole, wasn't in the top 6 in the GT class, and so as a result wouldn't start in the top dozen. But Jamie Campbell-Walter would do. He would start from the outside of the front row of the grid. Lister Storm with their cars second and fifth on the grid. Pole position, though, going to Mike Hasemans with a blinding run in the number 3 Viper in the Super qualifying session. But it's the reigning champion, Jamie Campbell-Walter, the Lister Storm, that will be the big favourite with most of the British fans. Of course, the presence of Ferrari always bringing out some Cavallino Rampante flags. And one of the stories of the weekend is the absence of what had been expected to be a major contender, the ProDrive Ferrari. Now, this car, built after the decision to come racing in the championship, was made at Christmas time last year to try and take on the rest of the front-running GT cars. The car had been tested and was examined, pre-scrutineered by the FIA on Wednesday leading up to the race, and there were determined to be some irregularities between the car's layout of its drivetrain, the transaxle, and what was required by the regulations aligning it to the road car. ProDrive's reading of the regulations said that the car has to be essentially in the same orientation of the road car, and then it says the position of the gearbox is free, providing the location and orientation remain original. Now, because they've got a prop shaft leading to a transaxle essentially driving the rear wheels, ProDrive argued that they had done that and their only change was to the internals. However, the FIA, we believe, argued that moving the internals from longitudinal to transverse layout inside that transaxle was a change from the road car pattern that was not allowed. Now, ProDrive were using an off-the-shelf X-Track transmission system, and that's how the gears came. So they were trying to use something proven, reliable and tested without spending a fortune on developing a brand new transmission, and believed that that was legal within the letter of the law. The FIA, well, presumably because we're not party to these sort of negotiations, saying, OK, we see where you're coming from on this, but we don't actually agree with you. And at the moment, that's how it stands. No ProDrive Ferrari at Silverstone. They hope to be at the next race at Zolder next weekend, but that will be subject to further discussions with the FIA. Problems also for Julian Bailey in the Lister Storm. Walked into the open drawer of a tool chest and really gave himself a very nasty bang in the ribs on the left-hand side of his chest on Saturday morning. And then the number 2 Lister also failing to qualify, or running qualifying for Nicholas Springer, who had to qualify in the morning warm-up this morning.
Congratulations on your pole position. You said yesterday that you thought you might have been helped a little bit by the weight penalty for the Listers. Is that going to be a big advantage for you today for a 3-hour race?
Yeah, I hope so. We have 90 kilos less than Jamie and Coronel, so I hope we can gain there a little bit on the brakes. So it's better to have no weight than weight, so we see, but they are always very quick in the race, so we see.
Thanks, Mike.
Underlining his potential, Hasemans fastest in the warm-up by 1.4 seconds from the Labre Viper, with the Listers third and 9th on the timesheets. Of course, Springer doing his qualifying in that Lister, making sure he got himself qualified for the race, otherwise they would have had to have retired the car once Julian Bailey had run out of allocated time. Well, again, bright sunny conditions at Silverstone, and the drivers relishing the chance to get to grips with the Grand Prix circuit, which is, they say, fast yet technical, demanding and exhausting at the same time. And that's the way they line up. Carsport Holland Viper and Lister Storm on row 1, Belmondo Vipers on row 2, Kumpen starting with Clerico alongside him. On row 3 of the grid, the second Lister of Julian Bailey, who will start, and the Ferrari of Mimo Schiattarella, who takes the start in the number 5 Raffinelli car. Then the second of the Ferraris in the top 12, that's the NGT class leader, Christian Pescatori, will start ahead of Luca Riccatelli, who has British driver Johnny Molam alongside him, as his regular partner Dieter Cuesta is unable to drive. The Perspective Porsche and the Labra competition car ahead of the Art Engineering and Freisinger Porsches. Wolfgang Kaufmann went faster than some of his NGT rivals in Superpole, but there was a hole in the airbox, so he wasn't allowed to keep the time. Starts 12th ahead of the Labra Viper. The second of the Raffinelli Ferraris on the inside of row 8 will be started by Marc Duez ahead of the second Carsport Holland car. GLPK Viper of Dames and the Hungarian Ilias ahead of the Art Viper of Jarrier and Lafont. Jarrier starting. The Racing Box Viper ahead of the Proton competition car. That's the only GT2, if you like, or GT class Porsche. Then the rest of the NGT cars, the MK Racing car there of Steve O'Rourke and Tim Sugden, and Sugden will start the race in that one. Nigel Smith, the other Brit in the class, sharing his Freisinger car, 58, again with regular partner Yuka Hirahane. And change of the lineup to the Coca-Cola cars, only bringing one car here, Jurko Malacek with Tom Savini, the American driver alongside him. And they hope to have their second car back in racing fitness by the time they get to Zolder next weekend. So only one car on the final row of the grid, the Mack Racing Porsche. Well, cars weaving to try and bring some heat into the tyres as they get ready to come round to the end of the warm-up lap and the rolling start. Join us after the break for the start of the race. Eurosport at Silverstone for the start of round 4 of the FIA GT Championship. The cars being led round by Mike Hazemans. The onboard shot from the Ferrari on the second row of the grid. This is the number 5 car being started by Italian driver Mimo Schiattarella. So Jamie Campbell-Walter, the reigning FIA GT Championship, on the outside of the front row of the grid on his home circuit. Mike Hazemans on pole position, who is going to win the drag race down to Kops for the first time. Hazemans controlling the field, the safety car has pulled off, they look relatively well placed. Julian Bailey hanging back in the Lister on the left-hand side of the picture. Now he gives it the gun, look at that, Julian Bailey driving around the outside of the yellow cars, the Belmondo cars, goes between them, he's up to third, looking for second place. No, he's trying to hold on to third as one of the Belmondo Vipers goes down the inside of him. Little bit of bumping and boring behind the second Carsport Holland Viper, and Jean-Pierre Jarrier moving up through the slower away NGT cars that started in the top dozen, but it's Mike Hazemans that leads. Jamie Campbell-Walter in second place. Third place, it's Anthony Kumpen, surely in the Belmondo Viper. Fourth is Julian Bailey. There you see it. Bailey in fourth place, up from eighth on the grid, sixth place on the grid. So good start from Julian Bailey between the Belmondo Vipers. But look at Mike Hazemans, the Carsport Holland car, 1.4 seconds quicker in warm-up. Now, we know that they've had fueling problems again this weekend, David. I wonder whether the car is now absolutely running at its maximum potential. It certainly looks quick now.
It certainly does. On that start, they really got away off that line and down to that first corner first. It does look good at the moment. They are trying to stretch their lead this early part of the race, and all they've got to do is try and sort out their fuel consumption, because they've had a few problems with it in the past, whereby it just uses that much more fuel than the rest of the Vipers, and certainly more than the Lister. So it means you have to have a splash and dash towards the end of the race. So as this race progresses, we'll have to keep an eye on it and see exactly where it is and how quickly it comes in for its first pit stop at the end, around about 1 hour's time.
Well, right behind the second of the Belmondo Vipers is Mimo Schiattarella in the Raffinelli Ferrari, but right behind him, I'm sure I can see Christophe Bouchou in the Labra competition Viper. There is Hazemans leading, Campbell-Walter in second place. The Belmondo cars in third and fifth. Are going to have to identify them as we get a close-up shot of them, because they were so tightly bunched on the second row of the grid. But There, the second Belmondo car, top of the picture. There is the Ferrari, and it is the Christophe Bouchou in the Labre competition car, started outside the top 12. So it's Compan in third, Bailey in fourth, Clerico is in fifth place ahead of Schiattarella, and then there is the red and black and white Labre competition car, Marc Duez in eighth position. So what a start. Well, a good enough start from Julian Bailey, but a flying start there from the Labre competition Viper. Bouchou complaining here that he was really at a handicap with 70 kilos of ballast for his success. Jamie Campbell-Walter carrying the full 90 kilos. Oh, and two cars off there. That is the gravel trap at Kops, and that is the Perspective Racing Porsche. That's Michel Neugarten on the right getting out. Neugarten out of his car, and the 51 car, who started that one? That was Bruno Eichmann, the Swiss. Well, David, they're in the gravel together. You always say every picture tells its own story, but I wonder.
I just can't work that one out, because these two guys were not together on the circuit. When they crossed the line, they were about 5 cars apart. So I'm not sure how two of them ended up there side by side. They certainly weren't together, and they certainly don't look as though there were any chance of them touching each other to go off there. But certainly there they are, the two of them there.
Well,
they're,
parallel parked
finished
superbly, and the snatch crews go into action. So the Kops gravel. Oh, and this is the race leader. My goodness me. Well, we've just seen some pretty dramatic stuff in the warm-ups with cars braking and so on, but this is surely the end of the race for Mike Hazemans. He was 1.4 seconds quicker in the morning warm-up, was thundering away from the field. And well, this really puts me in mind of the American Le Mans Series race from Silverstone last year, when it was Mimo Schiattarella at the helm of Gabriele Raffinelli's Lola Judd that was thundering away from the field until he suddenly had a throttle cable break about 7 laps in. Hazemans here as well. Well, a well-taken pole and a very rapidly built-up lead has evaporated as the car has come to a halt, and unless he can fire it up, he's in big trouble there. Jamie Campbell-Walter then, the new leader, Julian Bailey, driving really with very badly bruised and damaged ribs, and that will take its toll on him physically around this high-speed, high-G Silverstone circuit, especially here as the car throw the driver from side to side through Baggots, Beckett's and out to the Chapel Curve onto the Hangar Straight. Second place is Anthony Compan. Fourth place, Emmanuel Clerico in the Belmondo Vipers. Fifth place now, the Labre competition Viper, up from 13th on the grid. 13th to 5th in 3 laps. David, he could be leading this by lap 10 if that rate of progress continues.
Yeah, he's certainly made a very, very good start. He really did get his head down and go. He's had a very poor qualifying. He didn't make the Super Pole, as you said earlier. They are carrying a lot of weight in that car, and I think that has certainly affected them. They seem to have got it sorted out during the setting up of the cars, during the qualifying and the free practice sessions, and certainly now in the race. This car looks very strong indeed. They've certainly come from a long way back to be all the way up there, and it doesn't look as though it's going to be very much longer until they're past the Emmanuel Clerico Belmondo Viper, the blue and yellow one right in front.
Yeah, Clerico under pressure, but I think so too is his teammate Anthony Compan, because coming down the run there along Farm Straight, I thought that Julian Bailey was looking to think about making a move. He's not close enough at the moment as they come through bridge, but both Belmondo Vipers under pressure from behind. One from this car, the Labre competition car of Christophe Bouchou, the other one from the number 2 Lister Storm of Julian Bailey, and here are the 2 Ferraris, Mimo Schiattarella in 5, Marc Duez in 6, and they make a glorious sound. The ProDrive team very disappointed indeed not to be here at Silverstone. They were really looking forward. The team have been working 18-hour days on occasion, 7 day a week, every week since Christmas, designing the cars. They started by buying 2 second-hand road cars. They've rebuilt those into these brand new races, the first of which was due to debut here at Silverstone and take on the Raffinelli pair. And the ProDrive car looked absolutely fabulous. They were confident at least of coming out and waving the flag, but unable to do so. Now, this is a replay of the Perspective car, Michel Neugarten going off, and there into the dust, I'm sure, must have been the other Porsche of Bruno Eichmann. So Eichmann, well, it happens occasionally, doesn't it, David? Something happens ahead of a driver, just distracts you right at that critical moment. Neugarten there, going off backwards, crunch, 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 and suddenly, whack. There's Neugarten on the left, hit by Bruno Eichmann, who spun almost in sympathy.
Yes, 2 very unhappy looking gentlemen there. Neither involved with each other in the accident when it started, but one reversed quite heavily into the by a look of it. as it went off into the gravel trap a matter of seconds later. So quite a lot of damage done there, although they didn't actually run into each other before it started. But certainly, being in the gravel trap, you can see that's obviously where all the cars go. Two of them have gone one after the other into exactly the same place.
Ferraris 5 and 6 now reversed to 6 and 5. We're on board there with Mimo Schiattarella. He's in the number 5 car, being passed by his teammate Marc Duez. We saw that lining up essentially at the end of the last lap. Duez right behind him as they came through this section here, the stadium section as they call it at Silverstone, because they don't like the word infield or complex. And as he came out onto the front straight, taking that place away, and that in fact is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 position for 6th and 7th for the two Ferraris. Lister's 1st and 3rd, Belmondo Viper between them. Jamie Campbell-Walter, it seems to me, not getting away in the way that I thought perhaps he might try to in the early stages. I'm sure he's giving it everything, but the Belmondo Viper's carrying plenty of speed here, David.
It is, they're doing very well. They've been very good since they arrived here at Silverstone. Maybe it's just the sunshine that suits them, but they really have gone well. They've been right on top of the timesheets from the minute they've arrived here, and you can see how well they're going. You see them there 2nd and 4th in this race so far. Here's what was the early leader for the first 2 laps, Mike Hazelman's. He's looks as though he's getting out of the car, the helmet's off, the door's open. He's probably finished talking on the radio to his team back in the pits. They've decided that whatever it is, there's nothing more they can do, and they will have to retire it.
NGT class leader, the 77 Red Bull racing car. This is Luca Riccitelli, right behind him Fabio Babini. Now, we didn't see Fabio in the FIA GT Championship last year. He's really turned up trumps this year for Art Engineering in their Porsche. He's been the fastest NGT car in Superpole at Monza. He's been a regular front runner and a real addition to the battle. Last year, of course, it started off that the Red Bull car was fastest. In the end, it was the Labra competition Porsche that won the championship. Now, that car, the Bouchou car, is, well, still there, but Bouchou himself has moved on into the Viper in the GT class. And, well, if the RWS team thought they were going to have it on all their own way, the Art Engineering squad have stepped up to the plate to take them on, and they're lingering in 3rd place is the pole car, the Ferrari. Now, they had a bit of an uncomfortable start as I was watching them going into Copse, and I think the Ferrari, one of a number of cars, and I have to say, although I didn't see it, I would suspect that Eichmann and Neugarten were also tangled up by other drivers. Tim Sugden, incidentally, in the MK car, pushed right down early on after a Copse corner tangle with another car. And I think the Ferrari there in 3rd place is certainly not betraying its true race pace by only being 3rd in class. It's slowly but surely catching back up to the NGT leaders, on board with Luca Riccitelli. And the story behind Johnny Molan, well, Dieter Quester unable to drive here, and Molan phoned up last Friday in a restaurant at Le Mans, getting ready for the test weekend. And the team said, hello, RWS Motorsport here, what are you doing next weekend at Silverstone? Nothing. Would you like a drive? Oh, yes, please, thank you very much indeed. So, quick clearance call with Herbert Amfer, the Porsche Motorsport boss, and Johnny Molan finds himself in a car that he's fairly familiar with, but he says these FIA GT cars, because they're slightly different ruling, as we explained yesterday, slightly different in handling from the cars he's used to in the American Le Mans series, so slightly softer and a bit choppier and rolling a bit more, but I'm sure after practice he's very much up to speed with the car. So there are the lead trio in NGT. 4th place is the Labra competition car. You can see it just at the back of the shot, but Christian Pescatori in the Ferrari, very quick indeed all the way through practice. Really little question that the Ferrari is the quickest car on a single lap on the track at the moment. And Pescatori really running very hard indeed to catch up to these leaders before they get away. Out front, it's still Jamie Campbell-Walter easing away. And Anthony Kumpen in 2nd place in the Belmondo Viper, Julian Bailey in 3rd spot. As we ride on board with Riccitelli, no indication in his mirror of anything up the inside, perfect line. Oh, and look at this, Julian Bailey in the background, all over the back of Anthony Kumpen as they came across the line, nothing between them. Well, that was last lap, 0.1 of a second between them, and now Julian Bailey makes the move into oh my goodness me, wheel to wheel into Copse. Kumpen's got the inside line into Maggots, but as they turn right, Julian Bailey takes the lead into Beckett's of this little battle. He moves up to 2nd spot and out of the Beckett's complex, he will come onto the hangar straight in second place. Anthony Kumpen in third, Emmanuel Clerico in second. So it's Lister's first and second, Belmondo Vipers third and fourth, Ferraris sixth and seventh, and between them is the Chereau Viper. Back at Silverstone, the FIA GT race just 7 laps old. Round 4 of the championship being led by the Lister Storms now. Jamie Campbell-Walter from Julian Bailey. Anthony Kumpen third in the Belmondo Vipers. They pass the defunct Carsport Holland car that took pole in Super Pole runoff on Saturday and led the early going. And replay here of Julian Bailey. Well, they don't come much closer than that. Kumpen wasn't going to give up second place without a fight, was he, David?
No, he wasn't. He came out of there, he knew he was a little bit slower coming out of Copse. He got into it at a slightly wrong angle, trying to keep Julian behind him. And Julian got the run out while he was on the outside around this gentle left-hand Maggots kink. He was certainly on the right-hand side to turn into Beckett's the right-hander, so he took the lead into there. He carried a lot of speed in through that corner, and Julian made it count. He knows the circuit extremely well, and there he is up into second place overall.
NGT lead, Luca Riccatelli. We're on board with him in the Red Bull car, but look at this, Christian Pescatore now right with them. This is first, second and third in the NGT category. Pescatore in the Ferrari, the 2 Porsches right ahead. Babini the meat in the sandwich at the moment, and Riccatelli the class leader. So 7 laps in at Silverstone, and this race due to go 3 hours, or how many laps is the maximum, David?
It says 97 laps or 3 hours by my calculation with the lap times they're doing. I would have thought somewhere around about 95 laps. It might not just quite make that 97 laps a target that they've got at the moment.
So again, even in bone-dry conditions on one of the faster tracks they'll go to at Silverstone, the 3-hour mark coming into play just before the maximum race distance. At least we assume so. Well, the weather set fair, no chance of rain here, or snow, or hail, or sleet, but a chance of a change in the NGT lead. Luca Riccatelli being slipstreamed down the front straight, and immediately as we cut to the onboard, Babini goes by him into Copse. So Fabio Babini in the Art Engineering Porsche now on the brow, using all the road, all the grass and everything else he can through Maggots and into the Beckett's S's. Now, of course, Riccatelli has got the Ferrari right behind him, and if he had to compromise his line too badly coming in there onto the long, fast hangar straight, the Ferrari we know has got the straight line speed and the horsepower. Here comes Pescatore, the red and green nose of the Ferrari, not close enough to making a move. The JMB GS driver will have to wait another chance because he's not quite close enough to Riccatelli, but look at the way that Babini has jumped away from Riccatelli once he took the lead of the class. I have the feeling that he felt rather bottled up behind the blue car.
Yeah, he was stuck there. He really wanted to get past, and the minute he's passed, he's really sort of nailed that thing to the tarmac, and he's pushing it very, very hard indeed. We've seen it when he went through the Beckett's Maggots complex up there. He really was on the ragged edge, trying very hard indeed to pull away. And that's exactly what he's doing at this moment in time. He's pulling away from the blue Red Bull Riccatelli driven car. And I'm sure he knows that he needs to get as much space between him as possible, because right behind him is that little red, white and green Ferrari. Now the Ferrari we know is very, very quick. It has been on pole position for the NGT class this weekend. It's been quick all weekend, and we know it's very good at doing the race distances. These cars generally have to have 2 stops. 1 stop for a full tank full of petrol, the second one for a bit of a splash and dash. But the little Ferrari there in 3rd place, it needs only 1 stop, so it can save itself quite a lot of time. Something like to get in and out of the pits and a dash of petrol, that'll be something in the region of 40 seconds. So they can save that amount of time during this race, provided nothing else goes wrong. But with 3-hour races, you never know what can go wrong. Something might have a problem, or a puncture, or something have to come in which case it will all change around.
Look at the way the battle's seesawing. 3 corners ago, Pescatore was breathing in the exhaust fumes, hot and fresh out of the back of the RWS Porsche. Now look at him, he's half a second back. And incidentally, that's Sebastian Dumez in the red, white and black car. You can see right behind the Chereau Porsche in 4th place in the class. And again, David, what a chassis this Ferrari has got. I was talking to Johnny Molam about it. He said last year when he was racing, it didn't have straight line grunt. You could pull out and go by him in a straight line, but you always knew in the twisty bits it had a great chassis. Just look at the way he caught the Porsche there through Maggots and Beckett's, and that is such a giveaway. This thing has got a fantastic chassis under it, and the Porsche isn't slack at that either.
The Porsche's renowned as the leader in this class. It always has been for quite a few years, but eventually they've got this Ferrari to work very well. You've got to remember it's a mid-engine car rather than a rear-engine car that the Porsche is. Porsche's got the engine hanging over those rear wheels out the back. The Ferrari is in front of the rear wheels, right in the middle of the car, and they've got a fantastic handling car. They've obviously done a lot of work over the winter with the engine, so now the Porsches can no longer simply drive past it in a straight line. Don't get me wrong, I think the Porsches are still very, very quick indeed, but the Ferrari now able to give it all and be right there and try and win these races like it did in Magny-Cours.
Mike, unfortunately you had to retire in Magny-Cours with fuel problems, and it looks as though your race is over here. What happened?
The problem was that I think the alternator, just the warm, when I did the one lap, the volts were coming down. Normally you have 13.5, 14 volts, and it went to 12, 11.5, 11.10. So I think there is a problem, I don't know, and I just didn't have any power anymore.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, very disappointing for the Car Sport Holland boys. They certainly had the speed, well, early on and in qualifying in the morning warm-up to show everybody else a clean set of heels. As it is, though, they didn't have the car that would go the distance, and again, another disappointment. Twan Hazeman saying this weekend, well, let's hope for better fortunes at Silverstone. He said, we just don't have luck. Well, they do, but the only luck they've had so far has been bad, and that's not the kind you need. Julian Bailey and the Lister Storm in second place. Jamie Campbell-Walter and the Lister Storm in first place. Lister looking well poised at the moment, and there's about 3 seconds between them. Anthony Kumpen in third. He's about another 4 seconds behind Bailey now. Fourth, Emmanuel Clerico. He's nearly 8 seconds behind his teammate in the number 11 Belmondo Viper as the leaders go through the slower back markers, and Bailey very close indeed to the Porsche there. I'm sure that won't have pleased Julian at all.
So now the Porsches can no longer simply drive past it in a straight line. Don't get me wrong, I think the Porsches are still very, very quick indeed, but the Ferrari now able to give it all and be right there and try and win these races like it did in Magny-Cours.
Mike, unfortunately you had to retire in Magny-Cours with fuel problems, and it looks as though your race is over here. What happened?
The problem was that I think the alternator, just the warm, when I did the one lap, the volts were coming down. Normally you have 13.5, 14 volts, and it went to 12, 11.5, 11.10. So I think there is a problem, I don't know, and I just didn't have any power anymore.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, very disappointing for the Car Sport Holland boys. They certainly had the speed, well, early on and in qualifying in the morning warm-up to show everybody else a clean set of heels. As it is, though, they didn't have the car that would go the distance, and again, another disappointment. Twan Hazeman saying this weekend, well, let's hope for better fortunes at Silverstone. He said, we just don't have luck. Well, they do, but the only luck they've had so far has been bad, and that's not the kind you need. Julian Bailey and the Lister Storm in second place. Jamie Campbell-Walter and the Lister Storm in first place. Lister looking well poised at the moment, and there's about 3 seconds between them. Anthony Kumpen in third. He's about another 4 seconds behind Bailey now. Fourth, Emmanuel Clerico. He's nearly 8 seconds behind his teammate in the number 11 Belmondo Viper as the leaders go through the slower back markers, and Bailey very close indeed to the Porsche there. I'm sure that won't have pleased Julian at all as he's trying to rattle on. And well, Clerico now starting to close a little bit on Kumpen and on that last lap. Maybe again they've been held up by traffic. Incidentally, if you want to know the difference between the Listers, that head-on shot of Bailey showed that around the bottom of his splitter, the number 2 car has got little day-glow flashes. That's the only distinguishing mark between them. The Belmondo cars have all got little day-glow corners in the windshield. Little green one there on the 11 car, little pink one, day-glow pink on the 10 car, and day-glow blue on the 12 car, so you can tell those while you zip your anorak up. Still behind them, in 5th place, Christophe Boucher in the number 7 Labre Competition Viper, and then the Ferrari still 6th and 7th, Duez ahead of Schiattarella. There's Duez, Schiattarella some way behind. In fact, David, the full length of a run there from Abbey down to back up to Club Corner, so dropping away, and I'm not quite sure what the difference between the Ferraris here is, but Schiattarella doesn't seem to have the speed that the Duez car has got. I
think Mark Duez is well used to this circuit. He's been here a few times. I've raced with him on this circuit many years ago. Very experienced driver, driving very well this year with this Raffinelli Ferrari, and he's certainly making it count this weekend. He came from behind, he managed to get past his teammate and pull away from him. And you can see him, he's catching the Boucher car. Remember, the Boucher car is the car leading the last race at Magny-Cours and won there, so it's carrying a lot of weight, we know that. but he made a very good start at the beginning. It came from well down and up to 5th place. And now Dewey, who was left a little bit sort of stranded at the beginning, I'm not too sure. He's managed to get himself into gear, and he's pulling back all that time at the moment. And there he is up in 6th place.
Well, look at that. Despite the best efforts of Christophe Pouchou, the Viper stepping out at the back already as he pushes on through Maggots and Beckett's. And David, surely that not a good sign so early in the race, you know, just 10 or 11 laps gone. Oh, and this is a problem for the Wolfgang Kaufmann Freisinger Motorsport Porsche. They're looking under the car, they've got the wheels off. Now, that bit behind the driver, obviously, is engine and gearbox. So he has got, well, we're hearing that he's left oil on the circuit, so he's got an engine or gearbox leak of some kind. I rather fancy that might be a pretty early end to his race. Now then, this is the Ferrari ahead of Luca Riccitelli in NGT. There is Babini, there is the battle for second, three-way. Goodness me. Nearly 3 cars abreast there on the straight. Riccitelli with Dumes all over the back of him, and with Pescatori fighting his way past. So Luca Riccitelli is losing places in NGT. The leader just 5 laps ago, now down to 3rd place, and even that under threat. The RWS Motorsport driver will not be pleased with this sort of retrograde step. On board again, and out of Chapel Curve onto the Hangar Straight. And then just sit with your foot buried and wait and watch the mirrors and watch the Dumes car inexorably grow fractionally larger and fractionally larger until he dives out down the inside, but just not quite close enough that time.
Now these cars very, very evenly matched. All these Porsches are basically the same car that come from the Porsche factory. When you go and buy a race car from them, it's like buying a road car. You go along, you pay your money, they give you the car, and they hand you a key for it. And race cars normally don't have keys. They've got big red buttons, or that you can either twist or turn or push or whatever to start it. But no, these racing Porsches start like a normal road car. You get in, you turn the key, and away you go racing. Put some numbers on the side, and that's it. These are obviously well-developed cars. Been racing for a while, and they're at their best. But very, very quick indeed, and they're really using all of the road. We noticed previous meeting watching the 77 Red Bull car. It really is all over the road. They really drive it very, very hard indeed. They are hustling it. And it's the same here as we watch from on board. We can see right to the inside, cutting across the curb on the inside, nearly hitting those posts, and all the way to the outside as they come out, using every inch of tarmac available to them around this Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone.
And he needs to, doesn't he? Because Sebastian Dumes, the former single-seater star, all over the back of him, giving Luca Riccitelli a very hard time indeed. Dumes angling for this position. He can see Fabio Babini and Christian Pescatori, the Italians, who are 1st and 2nd in the category, easing away, and he doesn't want them to escape too quickly. And if Riccitelli, the 3rd Italian in NGT, can't stay with them, then he'd better get out of the way, because I don't think that Dumes is going to want to wait very much longer. Incidentally, about those posts, they're not solid steel set into concrete. They are flexible, flappy things. You can actually hit them without doing too much damage to the car. The clerk of the course might want a word with you later on, though. Oh, and replay there, on board with Christian Pescatori. That's how it happened. Priory into Brooklands, a little short stab. Oh, and just a little rub there between the two of them, because as you dive deep into Brooklands, the car behind can chop back and try and go around the outside into Luffield. That's exactly what Riccitelli did. So that little onboard replay tells its own story, David. Great opportunistic pass there, I think, by the Ferrari driver. Oh, and in the pits, somebody with a blown tyre. That's the 24 Viper. Now, that's not one of the front runners, the racing box car. Gabriele Mattiuzzi, though, picking up a puncture, so maybe there's some debris out there on the track that the leaders need to know about. As it is, Jamie Campbell-Walter continues, and they are pulling away from the field in traffic. They'll have to be careful, and in fact I think Jamie's lead is coming down a little bit as they're now only 1.7 behind him from something close earlier on. Traffic is holding up the race leader. Back to Silverstone, and drama for Mimo Schiattarella, the number 5 Ferrari, with a broken right corner, and that's as a result of that flat right tyre. Now this is where it all starts to delaminate very badly. There's precious little left on the rim, David. That's in danger, well, luckily it's disconnected itself, but in danger of ripping off the corner of the car. Here is the 77 Red Bull car in the pits as well, Luca Riccatelli. He's been across the grass at Maggots and Beckett's, and as we pointed out earlier, lots and lots of newly mown grass. Look at this in replay. Just look at that. Much less bother than a hover, but it certainly overheats the Porsche. Those radiators all around the front, all he's got to cool the car down. Well, not too shortly afterwards, Julian Bailey catching Jamie Campbell-Walter, courtesy of the leader being held up by slow back markers. And we saw it at Magny-Cours, David, the two cars wheel to wheel, dicing for the lead. Here we go again.
Yes, we've seen it there, and they had the overtaking manoeuvre there down into the hairpin, the Adelaide hairpin in Magny-Cours, and it looks as though it's happening again here.
Well, the two listers nose to tail. Julian Bailey coming into the pits behind Jamie Campbell-Walter, as at Magny-Cours again, stopping almost exactly right on the 1 hour mark, and both together. Now, a lot of teams would try and engineer avoiding that, but Leicester seemed quite happy to deal with that. The crew are well enough drilled. Jamie Campbell-Walter's car heading back out onto the track with Tom Coronel at the helm. Julian Bailey out of the number 2 car, Nicholas Springer in, but going nowhere. Now, it's an electrical problem. The car refusing to restart, and they are trying desperately to find out what the deal is. It won't turn on the starter, so new battery, and in fact 2 new batteries being tried in the car to no avail. Eventually the car retiring. So in comes a smoky number 6 machine, the Ferrari, and this stage being driven by Marc Duez's teammate. Duez had handed it over to Gunther Bleilinger, and just a few minutes later the number 6 car back into the pits, smoking with an overheating problem. And again, potentially, well, the team not sure whether the overheating led to an engine problem or an engine problem led to the overheating. Tom Coronel leading into the second hour, plenty of battling behind, and this is Jean-Philippe Belloc in the number 7 machine, passing the number 12 Viper. Now, that car had already been into the pits with overheating problems after running off onto the grass and blocking the radiators. The 11 Viper had had problems where the bonnet came loose. They stopped to fix it and were then black flagged as it threatened to fall off. Tom Coronel coming in for his regular pit stop after an hour and 40 minutes of racing. Jamie Campbell-Walter stood there in the helmet, ready to take the car back out. And that meant that the number 7 machine was now the new leader. Winners last time out in France, threatened to win at Monza. Could the Labre competition car do it again? Well, the Lister Storm team were going to do everything in their power to stop them, especially here at Silverstone. As the number 1 car went back out, the number 7 car came into the pits just after the 2 hour mark for their final pit stop. So the number 1 Lister Storm back into the lead, but this had already boiled down into a 2-horse race. Lister versus Viper, and it was the Lister Storm of Jamie Campbell-Walter and Tom Coronel versus the Labre competition car. The Belmondo Vipers, by this stage, none of them really in the hunt. In the NGT class, well, the battle continuing all the way through between the Ferrari and the 54 and 77 Porsches. The lead trio had been swapping places all the way through. The Ferrari leading after 2.5 hours, and at that stage, Johnny Molam in 3rd place in the 77 car that he'd inherited. 3rd place in the class, incidentally, 13th overall from Luca Riccatelli. Well, Riccatelli being delayed slightly after his grassy excursions, and after 2.5 hours the number 1 Lister Storm still out there, but being reeled in and setting up a real grandstand finale because the Labre competition Viper closing right behind him. So a dramatic start to the race at Silverstone, and the middle hour where normally it all goes dull and flat, none of that either in the 4th round of the Super Racing weekends. Wonderful weather for the spectators to enjoy a very tense battle in both classes, and Jamie Campbell-Walter with Christophe Pouchou just 3.8 seconds behind him. And the Lister, could it go all the way on fuel? It seemed pretty certain that the Labre competition car could, but into the closing stages with just 15 minutes of the race to go, there was a 3-second gap between them. And with less than 10 minutes to go, this is what happened. You saw onboard replay of Jamie Campbell-Walter running wide through Maggots and into Beckett's onto the grass, and predictably enough picking up some grass in the radiators. The onboard camera showed Christophe Bouchou winding through into the lead, and immediately, look at that, smoke from the back of the car. And the question here is, was it a problem that put the car off, or was it the car going off that caused the problem? Well, that's something that only a post-mortem will reveal, but what was clearly revealed is that Jamie Campbell-Walter's race in the lead was at an end. Could he salvage any places? Passed by the Labre competition car, he looked almost certain to lose second place as well to Michael and Sebastian Bleekemolen's Car Sport Holland entry, which was fast approaching, and at that stage in third place. The Belmondo Vipers, well, after their dramas, they were still running. The GLPK car dropping off into the gravel, but all eyes on the Lister Storm, and the Car Sport Holland car closing from behind, being passed by the NGT Labre Porsche. Jamie Campbell-Walter's time essentially up. And again, running wide here onto the grass. David not getting very much grass, but, well, hard to tell whether it was damage that caused the off or vice versa.
It doesn't take much grass to block these radiators. As you see, the front of the cars are very low down on the ground. And if you run across the grass, you're picking up all that freshly cut grass that we mentioned earlier. And certainly seems to be a problem. It's certainly the problem slowed the car down very quickly. I wouldn't have expected the grass to have caused that problem that quickly. It looks as though there was maybe something else happened, and that's why it went off. But we can see inside the car now from the onboard cameras a lot of smoke and steam inside there. So whatever that's happening inside there, it's certainly not very good. It's so close to the end of the race as well.
Well, we all know the smell, don't we, of steaming, scalding hot gearbox oil and engine oil. And as the car comes to a halt, Lawrence Pierce leads the assault and throws himself at the car so dramatically. In fact, I think he's hurt his leg as well doing so, pulling all the grass out. But it must be more than that. I really can't believe that just that tiny little run onto the grass would have the car immediately going down the hanger straight, smoking so dramatically. I must believe that there was some problem in the car already, and maybe it was oil on the rear tyres or something that stopped Jamie from slowing down enough to negotiate Beckett's. But whatever, Campbell-Walter now coming back out of the pits, and at this stage with just 4 or 5 minutes literally of the race remaining. What drama in the closing stages at Silverstone, and the Labre competition Vipers smoke billows around the cockpit. Jamie doing his level best to bring the Lister up to speed, but it's just not really having it. The Labre Viper well in the lead, and the Car Sport Holland car in second place. Now maybe a chance to salvage something for the Belmondo Vipers, because the chase is on for those podium places. They won't catch Bouchou and Belloc's car, the Labre car, too far out front, but the battle is on for the minor placings now that, well, the Julian Bailey and Nicholas Springer Lister retired after its first pit stop. And Jamie Campbell-Walter and Tom Coronel's car seems certain, even if it struggles to the end, to play no major part. Sebastian Bleekemolen in the Car Sport Viper, desperately now trying to use all of his limited young racing life's experience to hold on to this podium position. Out front, the very much more experienced Labre competition driver Christophe Bouchou romping away in the lead, but it's Sebastian Bleekemolen holding off Anthony Kumpen for second place. Stint, and feeling perhaps I would fancy more pressure than at any stage so far in his career. The other Car Sport car out of the race very early on, and now battling for second place overall as Christian and Gerald Reed's Porsche gets in the middle of the battle, with Anthony Kumpen in the Belmondo Viper. So it's going to be a Viper 1, 2, 3. That much looks pretty certain now, but the prestige for Michael and young Sebastian of taking second place would be greater than third. Jamie Campbell-Walter brings the #1 Lister back into the pits for another unscheduled stop. And, well,
that looks like a broken steering there. They're wobbling that wheel around. Whatever's happening, it's not connected on the inside. We've seen when he went to go out of the pit that last time he got down the pit lane, he turned it, and it really didn't want to go around the corner. He very nearly hit the barrier on the outside. I noticed the next corner at the Beckett's complex, he always had a problem going around the corners. He's obviously limped that car back in. When they've checked it just now, that wheel's just wobbling about. Whatever's happened, it's no longer connected, and that's a broken steering, so that's him retired just so close to the end of the race.
a very hot, very frustrated, very flustered Jamie Campbell-Walter stalking off to the back of the garage. Nothing he can do about it now but sit back, relax for a couple of days, and then head towards Zolder in Belgium for next weekend's Super Racing action, round 5, the midway point of the championship, and hope for better fortune. Well, Anthony Kumpen's Viper shaking its head there as he points it into Beckett's, and really trying hard not to go round, but he's forcing it closer and closer to the back of Sebastian Bleekemolen in the Carsport Holland Viper. The orange machine running pretty nicely. It's got the pace to stay just in front of Kumpen, and it looks as though he may have enough grip to hold on. Little bit of a tail waggle, no problems at all. And 3 corners further round, exiting Abbey and heading towards Bridge, is the Labre competition car of Christophe Bouchou on his way to victory. Seems little doubt about that, but probably shouldn't say that with the way that everything else has been going. Well, still the battle continues, and young Sebastian doing a good job after their problems. The Carsport, beg your pardon, the Belmondo Vipers, all 3 of them still running here and looking to take the flag, unlike Magny-Cours, where only one of them managed to make the finish. And into the final complex, oh, a very big lunge from Anthony Kumpen. Bleekemolen saw it coming, just managed to haul the car around, close the door, but David, look how hard he's trying, really stamping on the gas, booting it round there to try and hold on to second.
They're really trying very hard because they're going offline, they're not making the apex as they should do, and they're crawling all over each other, trying to get that position. I mean, we're going into the last lap, I reckon, in order to try and get that second place on the podium. So these 2 guys should have a podium place on the basis they both finish, but which way around it's going to be, I would not hesitate, I guess, until right at the very end of this lap.
Well, once more the drama at the front of the field, and the NGT battle being led by the Ferrari. Christian Pescatori back in the car for the final stint, and he's holding on to that lead. There is our overall leader. So Christophe Bouchou once more making the final few turns of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. It will be on the 3-hour mark. They're getting ready with the checkered flag for him. There is Sebastian Bleekemolen, and there is our NGT leader, the Pescatori car, just being passed by the number 12 Belmondo Viper. And as they come around the Sebastian Dumez car, a last chance for Kumpen, well, maybe last but one as they come out of the Vale. Potentially still a chance at Abbey, and then into the complex for the final time. Well, what can they manage? It's going to be real edge-of-the-seat stuff, and after the disappointment of Mike Hazeman's car retiring, leading after just 3 laps, you just know that the Carsport Holland crew will be clustered around the monitor. Christophe Bouchou coming across the line, well, that much is taken as read. He will win here, round 4 of the championship for Silverstone. 2 on the trot for Labre competition, but the battle for second place behind him is going to be very close indeed. The checkered flag awaits. Who will get it first? Sebastian Bleekemolen holds off Anthony Kumpen into La Ville for the final time. Kumpen will have no room now for the drag race to the flag to get past Bleekemolen, unless the Dutchman misses a gear change, and he keeps it clean to the line. Sebastian Bleekemolen takes second place for Carsport Holland, rescuing the team from the depths of despair as they saw the lead car go off after just 3 laps with a mechanical failure. And third place for the Belmondo Viper. Anthony Kumpen gave it everything in the dying minutes to try and get a 1 step higher up the podium. Couldn't manage it. In the NGT class then, it's victory for Christian Pescatori. The Ferrari doing its 1 stop as against the Porsches, 1 and a splash. And Pescatori and David Terrian driving superbly. Barely a missed beat after the first corner incident that dropped them down the order. And the Ferrari 360 Modena, the 62 car, the JMB GS team, really very much a force to be reckoned with in NGT now. Their second consecutive victory for the Labre Viper as well. Lister failed to score with either car. That means that the Labre team will take the lead of the championship. And David Leslie, that race at Silverstone, the result at Silverstone, putting a very different perspective now on the way the championship is running. Last week, the FIA were looking at Lister to put an extra restrictor on the car because of their success. Now, perhaps they might have to think about doing the same with the Labra car.
The success was there for Lister, but what happened is they simply didn't finish today. They are quick, they're still quick. We've seen them lead the race until they had a mechanical problem. So you can't say anything wrong with the car. The car is still very, very quick indeed. But they didn't score any points today. So Jamie, who had been leading the championship, now no longer is. And it's back to Christophe Bouchou and Jean-Philippe Belloc. They're the people at the top of the list. And I reckon this car is going to be very difficult to beat during the whole of this year.
Well, one thing about the Vipers is that even in standard form, they have pretty rock-solid reliability with a very quality driver lineup, a very high-caliber driver lineup, Bouchou and Belloc, and the Michelin tyres, a great combination.
13, and it was it's incredible to win the race, but I think we did a very strong race. I'm very proud of the team. Everybody in the team did a very good job. In the last stint, Christophe had a problem with the tire and we stopped, but the other part of the race was perfect, and I think we did a very strong race, and it's a good thing for the championship. I want to congratulate Lister. They did a good job. They were very unlucky today, but we will see next race.
Thank you.
Well, Lister will have to see next race. They will have to wait until Zolder. And can this be that the Ferrari ran out of gas on the slowing down lap? Well, now that is fine edge of the seat judgment. That is very, very close to disaster for the Ferrari. But Pescatore will get a lift back in the medical car or something else to spray the champagne for winning in NGT. And confirmation then of the result. Bouchou and Belloc from Blickermolen's father, Michael, and younger son, Sebastian. Clerico's car in third place ahead of Vos and de Richebourg. Naspetti and Schiattarella, despite their puncture, taking fifth in the Ferrari ahead of, Clerico and De Forny rather in sixth position. Then Terian, seventh overall and winning NGT from the Babini and Moccia car, with Riccatelli and Johnny Molam third in NGT. Now, Tim Sugden and Steve O'Rourke were up there early on.
You said that
dropped
you
out
weren't
of the
very
podium
confident
towards the end.
but that's a fantastic win for you.
Yes, it's a wonderful race because we had some problems, but many cars too, and in the end I was pushing very strong a lot. My car was oversteer, but I'm really happy. I don't know exactly what's happened. I just see the Lister in the gravel, and it was possible to overtake at this time. So we are really happy for the championship. It's a wonderful thing, but we don't forget the car Lister was really more quicker than us all the weekend.
Thank you, Christophe.
All getting in the political message there. The Lister's still too fast. We may have won the last two races, but you've got to slow it down. Yes, he knows which side his bread is buttered on, doesn't he? Christophe Bouchou, professional driver in every aspect. So there you go, drama and excitement at Silverstone throughout the Super Racing weekend, and all of it in the most perfect conditions imaginable. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our coverage here, the Super Racing weekend, and we've had a couple of emails in saying how come we can't have such a motorsport-packed weekend every weekend on Eurosport. Simple answer is that they can't afford us, can they, David? Well, that's it from Silverstone. I'll be back with you next weekend as we move on to Zolder for round 5 of the Super Racing weekend. David is skiving off to Mosport and then to Lime Rock to continue with his racing career in the States. And hopefully we will be back together again when we get to the Hungaroring later in the summer. If the weather is anything better than this, it'll be great.
I know you wanted to do well here. What happened exactly?
Obviously we were leading at the beginning, came in for the stop, and then GT3 Porsche drove into the side of Tommy whilst he was out in the second stint, which bent the track rod. He pitted because he thought that maybe the tyre had gone, and we changed all 4 tyres, and the track was bent quite badly, so the steering was at an angle, but it was still we were still able to drive on it. So he continued, we filled up the fuel, and he did 50 minutes, and then he was lapping in the 54s, and we thought maybe he was struggling, so we thought we'd come in, and because of the 55% rule, he couldn't continue to the end, so we had to top up with fuel. I got in, and we found ourselves with a 6-second lead over Christoph in the Labra Viper, and we were able to hold the gap at 6 seconds or 5 seconds or so, with a not very good handling car, obviously, and unfortunately for us, the steering arm decided to snap completely with 3 laps to go. So it snapped, I went off, came in. It was still hanging on by a thread, so Lawrence said continue. They changed the tyre as well, and it was no good. We wouldn't have got any points, so we decided to park it with 5 minutes to go.
Well, disappointment indeed there for Jamie Campbell-Walter in the little incident with the back markers. In the end, what seemed like a harmless touch causing the end of their race. And that's the story of a number of drivers complaining about the amount of traffic, and on a fast circuit like Silverstone, perhaps the closing speeds between the big GT cars and the slower cars, something that the less experienced NGT drivers hadn't really come up against yet this season with all the wet races. Well, the championship then being led by the Labra drivers, the NGT class being led by the Ferrari drivers. Will we see a reversal of fortunes when we get to Zolder? We'll have to wait and see. As the drivers get busy with the fizzy, we'll be back with the final thoughts from Silverstone in just a moment.